Good evening and welcome to the Aransas Pass Independent School Board regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Today is Monday, May 13th. The time now is 7 p.m. and we do have a quorum of our board. We will begin this evening with our pledges of allegiance, if Mr. Stansbury will lead us in those, and then invocation by Mr. Rector.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Let us pray. My Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and all who are gathered here this evening. We pray for our staff and our students as they prepare for their summer break. We pray for our senior class as they graduate and move on to the next stage of their lives, that you will give them the guidance as they make their decisions on this next step in life. We give you all glory and honor, Lord, for the things they have accomplished. We now pray and ask your blessings upon us as we begin this meeting, and we ask this in Jesus' name. For his sake we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you, Mr. Stansbury, and thank you, Mr. Rector. At this time in our meeting, we will recognize public testimony for anyone who has signed up for public comments. Looks like none at this time. No one here for public comments? Then we will move on, and it is our pleasure at this point to recognize our Panthers and Employees of the Month. This evening, we will have Mr. Mullinax assist with the presentations along with Ms. Chapa, and then Mrs. Hill will read for each of our recipients.
Good evening. All right. First up, we have Sebastian Juarez. Sebastian is a second grade student at Falk Elementary. During this school year, he has maintained great attendance, returned all of his homework, completed all class assignments, and upheld an excellent standard of behavior. He demonstrated leadership by being Miss Stenenbach's Shake to Success class winner. We are very proud of Sebastian and can't wait to see the great things he will accomplish. Congratulations, Sebastian. Next up, we have Shelby Lozano. Shelby is a fourth grade student at Charlie Marshall Elementary. She is hardworking, conscientious, and self-motivated. She is a leader who sets a positive example for others to follow. Her teachers notice her kindness, willingness to work hard, and her daily practice of treating others with respect. We would like to congratulate Shelby as our Panther of the Month. Next, we have Jaden Tetcher. I apologize, Jaden Tecker. Tetcher. Okay, perfect. Jaden is an 8th grade standout student at AC Blunt Middle School. Jaden exhibits the ideal traits of a Panther. He is a student that does things right. He works hard, makes good grades, and is always polite. During track season, he broke a long jump record at the middle school that had been standing for 25 years. Congratulations, Jaden.
That was a triple jump? It was a triple.
In the triple jump. Next, we have Casey Hageman. Casey is a junior at Aransas Pass High School. Casey has shown leadership in ROTC, the classroom, and yearbook. He takes initiative and works hard to complete his goals and tasks. Aside from what a great student Casey is, he always has a smile on his face and is a true joy to be around. I wish we had 100 more of him, and this is why we are proud to have him as our Panther of the Month. Congratulations. Now we will move into our Employees of the Month. Our Employee of the Month for Falk Elementary is none other than Miss Jody Algesova.
Surprise.
This is a complete and total surprise, and for those of you that do not know, Miss Algesova is the principal at Falk Elementary. We are very proud of you, Miss Algesova. Congratulations. Next up, we have Teresa Reyes. Teresa is a 5th grade teacher at Charlie Marshall Elementary School. She motivates her students to perform at the highest level, not only inside the classroom, but outside as well. She has a heart as big as Texas and a sense of humor that keeps you on your toes. This is her 25th year in teaching. Congratulations, Ms. Reyes, for being selected as our Employee of the Month. Next up, we have Chelsea Smith. Ms. Smith is the health teacher at PE and coach at AC Blunt Middle School. Coach Smith is a kind and supportive staff member at the middle school. We can always count on her to help whenever needed. She leads the 8th grade advisory group and helps them plan end-of-the-year events for the campus. She serves as a mentor to new coaching staff, and we are thankful to have her as our teacher and coach at AC Blunt. Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Liz Worley. Dr. Worley is such an invaluable member of our high school team. Her focus is always on our students, and she gives her best every day to ensure they get the best possible education AP can offer. Not only does she look out for the well-being of our students, but she is also a warm and caring colleague. Aransas Pass High School is proud to present her as our Employee of the Month. Next up, we have Barry Morgan. Mr. Morgan has been a diagnostician at APISD for 6 years. His commitment shines through in every aspect of his work. With a welcoming smile and genuine care, he greets each day, embracing the opportunity to support our students. He approaches his responsibilities with diligence, ensuring that every student's unique needs are met with precision and care. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Morgan for his unwavering dedication and invaluable contributions to APISD. Congratulations. And last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Steve Cozart. Mr. Cozart is not here this evening, but he has been driving a bus at APISD for 12 years. He always shows up early for his routes, has an excellent attendance record, and is respectful to his students. Safety for his riders and staff is important to him, and he is very diligent about completing his pre- and post-trip on his bus before and after his routes. Thank you so much, Mr. Cozart, and congratulations on being our Employee of the Month. That concludes our Panthers and Employees of the Month. I will turn it back over to Ms. Butler.
Thank you, Mrs. Hill. Thank you, Ms. Chapa and Mr. Molinax. We have some other recognitions this evening. Next, recognizing our state qualifying color guard students. Dr. Barnes.
All right, we have our state color guard. No.
Are there members of the color guard present tonight?
No. So where the hell the men tonight? We were going to honor our state color guard. It's been a while coming. Because a lot of those young people also participated in our one-act play, and which went on for a time period after that. And so tonight was going to be their night that we're going to reward them with our recognition for their high achievement of advancing to the state in the color guard competition this past school year.
Well, congratulations again to our color guard for qualifying at the state level. So we'll give them a round of applause anyway. Continuing with other district recognitions, this evening, we'd like to recognize Coaches of the Year. If Coach Chris Bentley will please come forward. Coach Bentley is being recognized as he was named as the All-South Texas Girls Basketball Coach of the Year, and then also Coach Glenn Hayes. Coach Hayes has been named as the District 29 3A Boys Basketball Coach of the Year. If you will, gentlemen, if you please come here to in front of us.
Doing something?
Oh! Congratulations again.
Congratulations.
Let's come in for a photo. If you'll remain here too. Dr. Barnes, if you'll join them here at the front, please. Mr. Sandsbury? Are we centered, Blaze?
I'm so short.
Somebody behind you?
In the window.
Turn sideways, there we go.
Take my glass.
Perfect.
And next, we have a very special announcement. Is Rosemary Vega here this evening?
Haven't seen her.
Are there any members here from the chamber for the announcement in her place? We will move on with our agenda, but if they do arrive, then we'll allow them to make that announcement. Before we move forward into our business presentations and the rest of our agenda, just want to take a moment to thank all of the staff, employees, teachers, everyone from every campus and administration for their hard work, and all of you that were recognized this evening as Students of the Month and Employees of the Month. Everything that you have done, we congratulate you, and we want to encourage you to continue your great efforts, especially you students. You're doing so well academically and with your extracurricular activities and breaking records. Today it's the triple jump. We'll see what you do next. And so, again, we wish you well, and we thank you for making Panther Nation great. And we'll take a pause just in case any of the students need to leave, but you're more than welcome to stay and learn more about how the employees and board members work for your district. Looks spiffy.
Did we let the chamber know?
I just
Oh, they asked to be here. They didn't show up.
No.
That's strange.
text Rosemary and Marcy, but I haven't gotten anything back just yet.
They asked to be on the agenda to make the announcement.
Text Brenda too.
The lightning.
I thought they usually. They've usually done it.
Next on our agenda is a presentation by RBC Capital Markets for maintenance tax note. This evening's presenter is Mr. Robert Traylor, the Managing Director. You will please join us at the podium. He will present on a possible maintenance tax note to provide funding resources for tilt wall project and replacing stadium lighting. We'll turn it over to you, Mr. Traylor. Good evening.
Dusty Traylor with RBC Capital Markets. We have the honor and privilege of representing Aransas Pass ISD as your financial advisor. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces this evening. As was mentioned in the board item, in the agenda item, my presentation this evening consists of discussion around a possible maintenance tax obligation. I believe you may have copies of. Do you have copies of this presentation in front of you? Very good. First of all, before we really talk about the issuance of a maintenance tax note, I think it's always a good opportunity to just kind of visit with the district about our outstanding bonds and obligations. So if you'll turn with me to page number 3 of that presentation, you'll see a couple of graphs down at the bottom of the page and then some tables up at the top. Currently, the district has one outstanding voted bond, unlimited tax school building bonds, series 2016. Those bonds are currently outstanding in a principal amount of $12,295,000. You'll recall those are the bonds that were issued as part of the election in 2015. And then our other set of obligations that are outstanding are some contractual obligation QZABs that the district entered into in 2013. Those bonds are currently outstanding in a principal amount of $600,000. The QZABs, those obligations are scheduled to be paid off in 2028. Our unlimited tax school building bonds, as you can see at the graph at the bottom left of the page, we have annual debt service payments on those bonds of roughly $1 million per year through 2040, and then those bonds actually pay off in 2041. Then also, I think it's a good opportunity to visit on page number 4. We just show a historical comparison of the district's tax base and tax rate. Couple things to note here. Your tax base has grown dramatically over the course of the past 10 years. The tax base has been on a growth rate, if we look at it on a 10-year history, of just under 7%. And we look at it just in the 5-year history, our tax base most recently has been growing at just over 9% per year. So a pretty nice amount of tax base growth. And corresponding to that, the district's tax rate has decreased over that time span. Your tax rate back in 2014, 2015 was $1.43 and some change per $100 valuation. Our tax rate right now is just under 81 cents per $100 valuation. Now, our tax rate, as you note, is comprised of two components there. You see the column that talks about M&O. That's maintenance and operations. That's the portion of the tax rate that is utilized to pay salaries, turn the lights on, put gas in the buses, et cetera, et cetera. The other portion of our tax rate is the INS tax rate. That's the interest and sinking fund tax rate. That's the portion of the tax rate that is utilized to pay for voted bonds. That $1 million annual payment that you saw from the 2016 bonds, that's paid for out of your INS tax rate, which is currently at 13.65 cents. And you can see that we've actually kind of maintained that at that level for the past couple of years. The reason for that is the district has been, I believe you guys recall this, you guys have been aggressive in utilizing an opportunity to early retire a portion of those 2016 bonds. That's the reason why you look at that debt service payment chart on page number 3 and see that last year is only half of what those other years are. It's because you guys have paid down that other portion, and we're scheduled to do some more of that again before the end of this fiscal year. And we would anticipate that the district would take on that opportunity again in the next fiscal year. Just being able to capitalize on your growth and to pay off bonds earlier than anticipated, and that ultimately, over the life of the bond, saves district taxpayers interest on the bonds. Now, as it relates to the maintenance tax note obligation discussed here in our agenda item, I've got on page number 5 a big overview of what the state of Texas considers maintenance tax notes. I'm not going to go through all of that, but here's what I'll kind of give you the snapshot of what a maintenance tax note is. A maintenance tax note is a debt obligation that school districts are authorized to enter into to pay for items that are really not full-blown new construction, right? We can't go out and build a whole new elementary school or junior high with a maintenance tax note, but we can do serious remodeling, we can do AC repairs, interior repairs, refinishes, purchase, and also the purchase of other equipment that you can do with a maintenance tax note. A maintenance tax note differs from a bond in that a bond, you've got to go through the whole election process, et cetera, and it gets paid for from the INS portion of your tax rate. A maintenance tax note is paid for from the M&O portion of your tax rate, and you're authorized to take those out basically at any time to pay for those types of items that we discussed. And so what I've got for you on page number 6 for us to consider are 3 different scenarios. What we looked at here is a maintenance tax note that would provide a total principal amount of a little over $1.1 million. So in the top left scenario there, you see a maintenance tax note that is amortized over a 10-year period. And our annual debt service payments on that, if you look at column D of that top left, the top left scenario, our average annual debt service on that maintenance tax note is about $140,000 per year. But when we combine that with the debt payments on our QZAB that's outstanding, it takes our maintenance and operations paid debt obligations up to just under $260,000 for a few years. You guys see that? And then the next scenario that we have to the far right up at the top is a 7-year payback of the same dollar amount of maintenance tax notes. And again, in column D, that annual debt service payment's a little higher because we're paying it off sooner. So that takes our annual debt service payments up to about $185,000, $190,000 per year. But then again, if we combine it straight up with our QZAB, that takes our annual debt service payments up to about $310,000 for a time, and then drops back down to the $185,000. The scenario in the bottom left is a scenario where what we're trying to do in scenario 3, I'll call it, bottom left, is hopefully minimize a little bit of that total annual impact of taking on this QZAB by shaping the annual debt service on it a little bit around that outstanding QZAB. So you'll notice in column D, over the course of the first 5 years, we keep that average annual debt service on this new maintenance tax note at about $85,000 per year, and then it jumps up to its full amortization. But you'll see if you look over here in column F, our total annual debt service jumps to only $205,000, $210,000 per year during that first five years. So comparing that to, say, the scenario up at the top, we save ourselves on an annualized basis about $60,000 per year, $55,000 per year, and then comparing that to the scenario in the top right, our annual debt service payments are about $100,000 per year, less than that scenario by just shaping it around. Now, and point out the question that you probably all look at, but the total debt service of scenario 3 is higher, right? And the reason for that is you're delaying a little bit of your principal payment on that new maintenance tax note for a few years, just to kind of soften the impact of your payments on an annualized basis. Okay. So those are the three scenarios that we really considered and looked at here. I believe what we were targeting was a total project fund deposit of about $1,050,000 to $1,070,000 is what we were talking about here with the projects you're looking to finance. So the others are just associated with the issuance cost of the note. We ran these scenarios at an interest rate of 4.5%. That is very much in line with what's going on in the market right now. I've had some issuances of this type of instrument that were, you know, a little bit less than 4.5, say in the low fours, and then I've had a couple of others that were just slightly above the 4 or 5 range. So the 4 or 5 estimate, I think, it's got a little cushion in it if we were to do it today. All that to being said, I believe we're right in the ballpark of where this will actually shape out when you guys come to market with it. Just trying to give you an accurate projection there. Okay.
Trustees, any questions?
I've got one question.
Mr. Stansberry, yes.
You mentioned earlier about later in the year possibly paying down. Are those numbers put under these scenarios?
Well, these scenarios are associated just with that maintenance tax note, and that maintenance tax note is paid for only from the M&O portion of the budget. The scenario where we're going to pay off some of the bond early is on the INS tax paid bond. So it's not in this particular scenario because they're not paid from the same source.
The deficit payment?
Ma'am?
The deficit payment? We're talking about the additional payment that we've done the last...
The additional bond payment, the defeasance.
I'm sorry, defeasance payment. Okay.
That's correct, the defeasance, which is just a fancy word for paying off a bond early. It's like if any of us were to make an extra payment on our home mortgage. That's what that is. I know Mr. Galvan's bound to have a question for me.
Actually, I have one for administration. So when we're looking at going this route, what was the benefit of doing this versus using our fund balance? Fund balance is sitting at what, $5 million, roughly?
The amount that we're borrowing, with the closing costs, it's $1,115,000.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for the projects of the tilt walls and the lighting at the high school stadium.
Yes, ma'am.
And the engineer as well. We do have fund balance available to be able to pay the projects. However, we haven't received any money from the state since 2018. So it's possible we're having a survey done of all Region 2 schools. Possibly next year there may be a budget deficit being proposed if all schools are going to be in the same page to adopt a deficit budget. So we would have to use some of our fund balance to be able to maintain a budget for next year. We're getting a survey done of how many schools are doing this. We haven't gotten any money from the state since 2018.
You're doing a survey to determine how many schools are going to approve a deficit budget next year?
So I guess the question would probably be, if we take it out of the fund balance now, and then if we have budgetarily, kind of looking in the future, like which one would be the best impact for us? Would it be to get a note and kind of manage it that way, and then kind of take the new budgets as they come, or pay it through the fund balance and then think about that future money's coming in from the state? And right now, it just doesn't look like this year, but not a big increase to go along with our expenses. So we just felt like this would probably be the best scenario to manage that future funding going forward.
Got it.
And if we get a chance or an opportunity where some of that changes, then we can maybe make some of those payments earlier to pay down that debt.
Dr. Barnes, that's exactly the point I was going to make, is that, given how tight things are with the state right now, we don't know exactly what they're going to do with school funding, but we do know what they have done, which is basically nothing for schools, right? And so any dollars that we take and throw out of our fund balance at this point, they're gone. They're gone. With this, if we do ultimately here over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 years, get some additional monies from the state and that fund balance really starts to grow, we ought to be able to pay this down early, or a portion thereof.
Thank you.
Any other trustee questions, comments? Anything further, staff?
Plus, if we continue to grow over the next 4 or 5 years, I mean, if it's 9% a year or in the last 5 years, continues to grow, then shouldn't feel the crunch on the higher payments now.
I have a question. Ms. Chapa, out of the 3 options that we were presented, what is your strongest recommendation at this time?
3, to where we're able to pay lower amounts in the next 4 years until we finish paying off the QZAB loan, then we'll higher the amount.
Okay.
That way, the budget's tight right now, and that way we could balance it with 80,000 for next year.
So that was scenario number 3, the last one. Okay. Trustees, any questions regarding the staff recommendation? Again, tonight, this is a presentation informational item, and so this is to help us prepare not just for the short term, but again, when we don't have any direction as far as state funding, we don't have anything coming in. So we will have to make some hard choices, hard decisions based on the information that we have at hand. And so we appreciate the 3 scenarios.
Sure.
We appreciate forecasting as best as you can, and certainly we'll appreciate any updates as they become available.
Well, absolutely. It's great to be here this evening, and at y'all's direction, we'll get to work as y'all direct us to get to work. So, great to see you.
Yes, Ms. Chop.
Those projects that we're looking to finance, the tilt wall project, we did receive a letter from the insurance company
Okay.
that the insurance would not insure those buildings until we fix these buildings, these tilt wall projects. So that was the urgency of having to do these projects. The lighting, it was a hazard as well at the stadium. So that was the urgency of having to do these projects this school year.
So this is going to come back as a
Action item.
pretty soon.
Okay.
So they're not, so when they're binding our policy, they're excluding the building and the lighting portion of it?
They're giving us 90 days to get it fixed so they could insure
So
us.
during those 90 days, do we have coverage?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And our
When is-
90 day.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Mr.
When was the
Gohan.
anticipated completion date of the projects?
90 days.
And our 90 days is due when? When does that expire? Roughly.
Oh, we're starting the project. We have
Towards
an
the end of
up-
the month.
We have an update for you,
So the projects itself will start at the end of,
about August.
right at the beginning of June is when the projects for AC Blunt and Charlie Marshall will be scheduled. Provided we're ready to go forward, but they're ready for it.
Okay. Other questions, comments on this item?
Well, the lighting's scheduled to be done during the summer, right?
Right.
Yeah, all of
I
it.
mean, if that don't get done, we're playing day games next fall.
The stadium lighting, yes, sir. That's anticipated to be done
June 12th is the start date.
June 12th. Yeah. Yeah, we knew that was coming as a summer project, but
Yeah, they're all summer projects.
tilt walls as well. Okay.
If I may, one other comment that I forgot to mention when I was making my presentation is, as you guys give us direction to move forward with this project and timing, what we will do is we will prepare a set of bid specifications. Those bid specifications will spell out the dollar amount the district is looking for, And then we will take those and submit those to a number of banking institutions across the state and region that have a history of buying this sort of instrument. So, and then once we'll have a bid due time. Once we get those bids back, then the tax note will ultimately be awarded to the banking institution that provides the lowest bid. As your financial advisor, we cannot bid. We're your advisor. We're going out to get bids from other institutions and award it to the lowest interest rate bid.
So is that process in two phases? The one where we approve to go out for the tax note, and we come back and approve the lender?
What typically what we would do, you guys tell us to get moving and the dollar amount, we're gonna go ahead and start the process of going out, and then we would bring back an order authorizing the issuance of the maintenance tax notes. At that time, it would be filled in. It would be done. We would have received the bids and structured the maintenance tax note at that time.
Got it.
Okay.
And once we approve, we will be locked in at relatively around that 4.5 rate for the duration of the loan.
When you approve, you're locked in on the interest rate, and it's a great. I think your question is the interest rate will be a fixed interest rate.
It's fixed, yeah.
It's not going to be subject to floating and very. No.
Okay.
One last question, Dusty.
Yes, sir.
How many years have you been doing this for the district?
Well, personally, I've probably been working on bond issues for Aransas Pass ISD since about 2007, 2006. But then prior to that, my partner, Robert Henderson, had worked with the district for many, many years prior to that. So,
We have a long relationship with you guys.
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And we've enjoyed it.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks,
Appreciate
y'all.
it.
Oh, I have one more question. Since you're a financial advisor. Since we're considering this, and we have different dollar amounts there, but we have talked about within the life of whatever we choose here, hopefully getting to a place to pass a bond, how does this affect our DTI and what that's going to look like for our opportunity to pass a bond, knowing our financial standing?
Certainly. So this maintenance tax note is paid for out of the M&O part of your budget. It is not paid for out of the INS portion of the budget. So when you guys get ready to pass a bond election, that bond capacity and impact, that's only looking at what you pay for out of the INS portion of your budget. So this really should not impact that.
Okay.
And the thing that will help, as we've talked about a little bit earlier in this presentation, are those bond early payments or defeasances. So the more of that we can pay off, a little bit less burden that you've got currently outstanding on the district's debt payers. So
Perfect.
This really has no impact on your ability to do a bond in the future.
Okay.
Well, if there are no further comments or questions from trustees or staff, once again, we'd like to thank you for joining us this evening and continuing as our district advisor, and especially at this pivotal time for us.
Certainly. Thank you all very much. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay. We apologize. We're just double checking something here on the agenda. Bear with us, please. At this time, we are going to return to a previous agenda item, which is the announcement, special announcement that we have this evening. And I'll ask if Mr. Fernando Quintanilla will please join us at the podium on behalf of Rosemary Vega.
Hello, thank you for having us here tonight. I apologize, Rosemary was under the impression the meeting was next week, so nobody showed up for their announcement, but she did send me the information, and she wanted to announce today the Shrimpery King and Queen. Our Shrimpery King is going to be Jacob Arzola, and I don't believe he's here. And then with great honor, I want to present the Queen, my daughter, Karina Quintanilla. Thank y'all.
Oh, if you will, one more picture, please.
You want to go get a picture
Here we go.
with the group? Oh. Is that what I'll tell you?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Quintanilla. It was our pleasure as a district to allow the announcement to be here this year. We're thankful that we were asked to do so, and wish our king and queen well next year. Thank you so much. Some cheers there from the galley. Our next presentation this evening is our Aransas Pass athletic programs. This evening, our presenter is Athletic Director Justin Taylor.
I'm getting better, moving around a little faster. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I've moved from 2 crutches to 1 crutch, and hopefully next week I'll be off the crutch completely. For y'all that don't know, I had hip surgery 2.5 weeks ago. So I've been needing that to be done for the last couple of years, and it just kind of put that off. So here we are. And so slowly getting better each day. And so that's a good thing. If you look at the first slide, what I've done for you guys is kind of broken down by sport, the number of participants that we've had over the course of the last 3 years. And as you can see, most of those numbers have stayed pretty close to the same. A lot of those numbers have grown. And that's what our goal is to continue to grow these numbers, continue to get the kids wanting to participate in extracurricular activities. To break it down a little further for you guys, right now we have 33% of the high school involved in athletics alone. That's 77 boys and 68 girls. We're expecting a possibility of 92 incoming freshmen next year. That would put us at 124 boys and 91 girls. So there's a possibility that there could be 200 plus students involved in athletics when they get to the high school next year. So that speaks in volumes for the junior high staff and getting those kids wanting to participate in athletics and getting those kids to the high school for us. The next slide is the girls program. It's broken down the exact same way from 2021 to 2023-24. Those numbers are pretty steady. We've got some areas that we need to improve in, and I'll get to that in another slide later on in the presentation. The next slide is the middle school boys. Right now there's 99 middle school boys participating in athletics. There's 79 girls. That's 178 kids, which is roughly 70% of the junior high enrollment figures that were posted in this month's school board meeting agenda. That's roughly 70% of the total amount of kids in the 7th and 8th grade are participating in athletics. The next slide is the girls' participation numbers. And those are really high, and really proud of our girls program and the amount of kids that are involved at the middle school in our girls athletic program. The next slide is the impact of athletics, and I'm really pleased with these two pieces of my presentation. The first one is academics. As you can see, we had 43 academic all-district athletes this year. We had 15 academic all-state athletes this year. Now, to receive academic all-state, you must be a senior. You must have a 92 grade point average. So to have 15 athletes, and some of these athletes are the same, they just participate in multiple sports. But to have 15 of those athletes represent Aransas Pass on academic all-state teams is phenomenal. And that says a lot about our student athletes. That says a lot about our parents. That says a lot about the culture that we have in our athletic program. Another big point, emphasis that I'd like to talk about is it doesn't seem like a lot, but 2%, okay, 2% is quite a bit when you talk about daily attendance. In our athletic program, our athletes, we average 93% daily attendance. And the high school this year was at 91 and some change. So having our athletes show up at school, take care of their grades, stay out of trouble, it says a lot. 2% again doesn't seem like it's a whole bunch, but 91 to 93%, when you're talking about money and this and that with budgeting and ADA, that speaks volumes. Okay, the impact of athletics. One of the things I want to talk about is discipline. And I'm going to jump down to number 4 because I think number 4 summarizes everything that's in this portion of the presentation. Is discipline is what we do for you, not to you. And so, yes, there is some discipline that occurs when actions aren't taking place that should be, but for the most part, we're trying to teach accountability through discipline. And athletics holds kids accountable in the classroom. As you can see, there's several points there. Obviously, UIL back in the day came up with the no pass, no play. So if you're not maintaining a 70 grade average or higher, then obviously you're ineligible. It boosts educational achievement. Some of our athletes also have some of the best scores on the EOC and any of the standardized state testing that the state requires us to take year in, year out. We have athletes that have some of the highest scores in those standardized testing. Lowers the classroom failure rate, lowers referral numbers and ISS numbers. And believe it or not, I think we had six athletes this year that received some kind of referral. Those athletes were also received some kind of quote-unquote referral when they came out to us in athletics. And so those numbers, when you have 140 kids to only have 6, that's pretty good. High attendance numbers, we've talked about that. Low attendance makeup hours. We don't have very many athletes that are on that attendance, the makeup hours for not being at school. And then again, I've also mentioned the higher standardized testing scores. Not only does the impact of athletics with discipline, but it also holds our kids accountable outside the classroom. We talk about this all the time about making choices, right? You got to think of something that's bigger than yourself. Okay, athletics teaches that a choice that one athlete makes could affect 15 others. And so having the mindset that it's bigger than myself when a weekend comes around or spring break comes around or the summer comes around, those kids are making proper decisions because they realize that it's bigger than themselves. In life, you must be disciplined and persistent to succeed. Athletics is a way to teach this. to continue to understand the process, and don't worry about the results, because the results will take care of yourself if you're focused on the process of getting that result and getting what you want and achieving what you want. We also have kids that are involved in community service. We have youth basketball coaches. We have kids now that our athletic program partnered up with Rini Vasquez and the Power 12 football program, trying to get our youth program back up to where it was when Ms. Butler and Coach Butler ran it. And so we're having kids involved in that youth program. We've had kids umpire Little League baseball games. We've got kids involved in shrimpery. One of our athletes was just named Queen. And in previous queens have been members of our athletic program. Same with the Kings. And so being involved in the shrimpery, the Booster Club also has a shrimp booth, and we have a bunch of athletes that participate in that. The Blessing House downtown, we've had athletes participate in the Blessing House. The Blessing House is a really good nonprofit that helps needy people, and so it's cool that we have kids involved in that. We also have kids involved in the AP Parks and Recreation, so they're out and about. They're representing Aransas Pass ISD, they're representing Aransas Pass Athletic Department, and they're doing a great job at it. And we should be proud of our kids in the fact that they're representing us, and they're representing the purple and gold, and they have pride in doing that. The next slide is the summary of athletic accomplishments. We had by-district qualifiers, volleyball and boys basketball. We had area qualifiers in track. We had regional qualifiers in cross-country, track, golf, tennis, boys and girls powerlifting. We were district champs in boys and girls basketball, 8th grade boys track, 8th grade softball, and 8th grade baseball. By-district champs, girls basketball, area champs, girls basketball, regional quarterfinal champs, girls basketball, regional semifinal champs, girls basketball, regional finalists, girls basketball, and state qualifier, girls powerlifting. Coach Bentley did a great job with those girls. No one really believed that we were going to be able to make it to the regional finals. And the community came together. Some of y'all were at a lot of those games. And we were loud, we were proud, and people knew they were playing Aransas Pass. And that says a lot about our community. Plans moving forward. I mentioned this briefly, but there's 3 areas that we must improve numbers in. And we've got a plan that we're working on that will help improve those numbers. We need to improve numbers, increase numbers in cross country. We need to increase numbers in high school baseball, and we need to increase numbers in high school softball. Our goal this year is to have sub-varsity programs, or sub-varsity teams in those 2 programs. And so working with those coaches and figuring out a way to increase those numbers in those programs. This year we created an athletic leadership council. I'd like to see that grow. I'd like to see that on both the boys and the girls side. This gives more ownership in athletes in their programs, and it creates leaders for our athletic program. We need to continued improvement with parent communication. We've created a Facebook social media page. Sports U's been big for us. We need to continue to get those parents involved in the Sports U. That's a way that we communicate directly with our parents so that they know exactly what's going on, when it's going on, and all that good stuff. We need to increase the social media following for our athletic Facebook page. That's something that we've taken on this year, and I think that's a good thing to put our athletes out there in the social media realm of things, and to promote our kids and to celebrate our kids. We need to celebrate our athletes' accomplishments. Working with the Booster Club to encourage parents' involvement in the Athletic Booster Club. Several of y'all were at our sports banquet, and I thought they did a phenomenal job. The Civic Center looked great, and that was done by 4 or 5 ladies and their spouses. And so if we can increase that participation, With our parents, I think the Booster Club obviously will grow, and that pride will flow through the entire community. And number 6 is identify success factors. We need to figure out what we need to do across the board in every program so that every program's having success. Continue to build relationships with community members, with parents, program strategies, go over the strategies that were successful, the strategies that need to change, and then staff skills and style. Not every coach has the same style, but some styles work when they're matched up with other styles. And so we need to continue to build the staff skills amongst our coaching staff, and then blend those styles together so that our athletes are put in the best position to be successful on and off the court. So that summarizes 2023-24 athletic school year. So thank you guys for letting me present that to you. Y'all should be proud in our athletes, proud in of our coaches. It's been a long year, a fast year, but great things are still to come. So I appreciate your time.
Trustees, any questions or comments for Coach? None at this time?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Whoops. I think I just got kicked out.
Got kicked out.
There it goes.
You're welcome.
Our next item of business is we will hear from our School Health Advisory Council, SHAC, the SHAC report. And our presenter this evening is Teresa Morales. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Nice to be here tonight. And I want to say that we did have our 4 SHAC meetings starting in September and ending in April. We started off with Mr. King informing us that the schools now are required to have Narcan on the campuses. And as you may know, Narcan is a medication used to reverse an opioid overdose. And we did accomplish that. The nurses were able to secure the Narcan. It's for middle school and high school primarily, but they are on all campuses. And that was free of charge through UTSA Health Science Program. And so that is in place. We secured training as well through TRICARE EMS for the secretaries, the coaches, the teachers, the staff in the use of Narcan. It's a nasal spray. It's pretty easy to use. And they also train the staff in rescue inhalers and EpiPens, which are suggested but not required as of yet. We did also find a source for EpiPens. We got the prescription through Dr. Meacham at Driscoll. He's a Driscoll ER doctor. And that has been ordered, and it should be coming pretty soon. We have not yet found inhalers, which, as you probably know, EpiPens are for a severe allergic reaction, and inhalers are for an asthma emergency. And we're still working on that, but I feel like that was a pretty good accomplishment in that area. Next, I want to talk about food service. And through Cindy Mann and her strong leadership skills and hard work from her and her cafeteria staff, we learned that they passed the administrative review with a perfect score, first in the district, or first in the area, excuse me. And so that was a great accomplishment. In November, she went on to, the cafeteria went on to in March, 4th through the 8th, was National Breakfast Month, and they had a promotion where they gave out gift cards to increase the breakfast participation with our students, and I believe that happened. And then she also gave a report for this summer's feeding program, which is going to be free for children 1 through 18 at this Charlie Marshall campus. And parents can also come, and it's $5 for parents. So they do have to eat on campus, but so those were our SHAC meetings. We did have one more, the 4th meeting. We had Martha Rose, who was a former principal at Falk and AC Blunt. She came, she's contracted through Texas A&M Kingsville, and she talked to us about a community mental health needs assessment survey that they've been doing in the communities, and that would help us know what Aransas Pass needs in order to hopefully provide for that. And now I don't know how far we've gotten into that, but she did come and talk to us. It was a very good presentation. We had our counselors there, and it was good. At that last 4th SHAC meeting, we also had Ruth Christiana come. She's the Sampat County Health Department Program Outreach Manager. We get a monthly email newsletter from her, and she gave a presentation on what her program does and the outreach. I believe she went to AC Blunt then and talked to the students about vaping. So and she wants to come, excuse me? Oh, she talked about fentanyl, okay. So I thought that was gonna be vaping, but so it's good that she wants to come to the SHAC meetings, and we're happy to have her and get these partnerships going so our kids can be healthier, and that's the goal. One thing we didn't accomplish that we would have liked to was getting more parents involved. We did lose a couple of parents and gained one, and also that's Greer Jane, and then Tony Davila agreed to serve. He's had several conflicts, so that hasn't happened yet, but next year again we'll. And that's our goal, is to get more parental involvement with our SHAC meetings. So, and you have the full report, but that's just the highlights. So, thank you.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions?
How many students do you have in your meetings?
We haven't had any yet, but it is open.
Okay.
That's one thing we need to do better at, is getting parents and students involved. So I was hoping to recruit parents, but
How many parents do we have right now?
we have one,
Just the one?
just one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you would think that students at the health center or whatever, this would benefit them if that's what they want to make in their career.
Mm-hmm.
Might be something to pitch to them.
That's a great idea. I like it.
And again, if you could share with us what time you meet.
We do meet at 4 p.m. at the central office conference room. And it's always on a Wednesday, or it has been. And we met September, November, February, and April for our meetings. Mm-hmm. And they are on the website. They are recorded, so they can be viewed on the website, APISD website.
Any other comments or questions, trustees?
I have a question. And this, I believe, would be more administration. Do our students, if they serve on SHAC, do they get community service hours for that? Have we set it up like that towards their community service to try to encourage enrollment and participation, or?
As far as I know, they haven't offered that opportunity. Probably sure it's something we can look at, especially if it's maybe after school hours like it is at 4, or if it came out a little later. that could be a possibility.
I was just curious of what we can do to pick up participation, because this program, our last few presentations, since I've been on the board, the participation's been really hard to come across, so maybe we need some creative incentives to try to get some participation there and have this program be successful.
I like it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Looks like there's nothing further, but thank you. We appreciate the report for the progress that's been made this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item of business is the Special Programs Department presentation by our Special Programs Director, Chris Johnson. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you? So I wanted to give you guys some updates. We're not having any trouble in participation in special education. So the first slide that you'll see will show how our numbers have grown since I got here in 2013. And since you know what our enrollment numbers have been, you'll see that it's disproportionate, the growth. So our special education numbers are growing, and that's statewide. It's not Region 2, it's not Aransas Pass. We're seeing bigger and bigger numbers. And the red line on that graph demonstrates dyslexia numbers. So what you're going to see is a consistent climb in dyslexia numbers over the year as well. But if you notice, in 24-25, at the end of that year, that number is going to drop to 0, because all students who are receiving dyslexia services will have to be considered for special education services. So all it is really just calling something different, but it also affects our burden to provide for them fiscally, to provide those services. And I point that out because it's going to put a lot of extra caseload on the diagnosticians. And what you'll notice going forward next year is that we added, sorry, my allergies are on fire. We added a half position for a diagnostician for this year, and we're going to convert that to a full-time position next year to meet the needs of converting those kids. So every student who's currently receiving dyslexia instruction under 504 will have to be given a full initial individual evaluation for special education services, meaning achievement, cognitive, and any other places of suspected disability. And that requires anywhere from 3 to 4, 5 hours of testing, and anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 hours of report writing before you even go to ART and consider whether or not they are a student with a disability in the area of reading. Does that make sense? So that's why we're going to need that extra position, which also comes with an added cost. Now, like anything else, with special education, we receive weighted funding for those students, but it comes after the fact. So we're going to be working on a real tight budget this year, and I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that, that the maintenance of effort still stands. We're still required to provide a certain per capita number of funding per special education student, even though we don't get the funding until afterwards. So that's pretty much covers where we're at with the special education and dyslexia. Everything else, special education, is kind of staying the course. Just like every other school district, we're seeing a lot more behaviors. We have a lot more students that are being identified with autism. We're trying to meet those needs down low and make as many gains on their milestones as we can when they're super young to bridge those gaps and get them the social skills and level that playing ground so that they have the best chance at success as they go on to the upper elementary, middle school, and high school. Super excited to be working with the principals for next year on going to more of a co-teach model. We know that works better than when these kids are separated from their non-disabled peers, and when we get a special education teacher working in tandem with a general education teacher to provide that knowledge in the content area along with that knowledge of the strategic things, the strategies that work with disabled students. So super excited about the opportunities that should create for us. Next slide. This is a bright shining light I wanted to show. We've been getting our most disabled students out in the community a lot more. We've implemented some community-based instruction, and these are some of the field trips that they've gone on. They were able to go to the Harbor Playhouse to see SpongeBob the Musical, and they had a really good time. And after that, they went out to eat. So they're learning money skills. They learned how to order their own food, how to sit and participate in a social environment. They had a lot of fun. They did the Falk Character Walk, where they showed up and they had a table where they handed out candy. That also allowed them to interact with their non-disabled peers. In January, they went to the very special livestock show where they got to show animals, and they do that in conjunction with the 4-H. They have they let them show their animals, but it's a really good opportunity for those kids to get out in the community. They went to San Antonio to Legoland and had a great time. They really had a great time. And they were supposed to go eat at that really awesome pizza place, but it was closed on the day that Legoland was. So they did something different. But they left at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they got back at 7 o'clock in the evening, and they had a really good time. They went to a reverse job fair, and that was a really awesome experience. So normally when you go to a job fair, you have the vendors set up, and those are the employers. And you go around and you look for jobs that are of interest to you. In this job fair, they had to set up something about what they wanted to be when they grew up, and then the employers went to their station, and it really forced some of those kids, especially our autistic kids, to have that social interaction, to shake hands, to make eye contact, and they really were super impressive. The reports I got back from the teachers were just very heartwarming. They were very proud of their students, and we hope to up the participation in that for next year. And then just this last week, they participated in the inclusive track meet. Gregory Portland had their first annual inclusive track meet, and our kids, bless their hearts, came up kind of last minute. They didn't get a lot of coaching, but almost all of them came back with medals, and all of them came back with medals or participation ribbons. And they had a really good time, and I was really excited that our administrators were able, a lot of them were able to get out there and watch them participate in that. And then they went to Chick-fil-A and had lunch and just live their best lives. So super proud of our efforts to get those kids out in the community. As you've probably heard, transitions become a big deal with the legislature and with Tech and TAC, and we're required to get these kids ready to do something after high school, no matter what their capabilities are, no matter what their disability is. And this goes a long way to getting them out there and letting them be the best them they can be, and giving them the confidence that they need to seek out the things that they're actually capable of doing, even if it's with support out in the community. The other thing that we're doing at the high school for the first time this year is participating with the Texas Workforce Commission in the Opt Now, and that teaches them employability skills, and it will provide job coaching for them. Some of them have already started working with job coaches. Many of them will have summer opportunities to work with job coaches in what we refer to as a supported employment opportunity, where they have a job coach on site with them to help redirect, you know, when they have their anomalies that are due to their disabilities. They're having a hard time staying on task, or they lose their temper, or they need to cool down, to really help them learn to self-regulate. And we're super excited to see where that leads us. So, great day to be in special ed. We're doing great things for our kids. I'm super proud of all of our teachers. They're really pouring 120%. I couldn't ask for better staff, better diagnosticians, better support in my office and on the campuses with our kids. Just super proud of what we have going. So, okay, so looking ahead for next year, we've really been working on the special education process, the referral process, to make sure that we're finding every child as soon as possible if we suspect they have a disability, but really also looking hard at data to make sure that we're not suspecting they have a disability because there's something else going on. I know everyone's tired of talking about COVID, but we're still dealing with these kids coming to school that were at home for the first 2 years of their lives, or years 2 and 3, or years 3 and 4, with very little self-regulation. And we've seen that demonstrate itself in the fact that they don't have a lot of boundaries, social boundaries. It's wreaking havoc down at Falk. So we're going to start bringing in some training to address behavior specifically, because it's not always due to an emotional disturbance. Sometimes it's due to a lack of boundaries, and really finding ways. So we're going to combine that with SEL and really work through that through the special education process and the mental health process to see how we weed that out. And we're definitely not alone in that arena either. All districts around us are struggling with how do you unravel that? What does it look like, and how do we meet the needs of these kids? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we call them special ed or we don't. We call them emotionally disturbed or we don't. Call them mentally ill or we don't. At the end of it, as educators, it's just our job to meet their needs. And so how do we play nice in the sandbox and figure out how to carry that load together and do what's right for kids? So I'm super excited about finding ways to do a better job in the referral process for special education, of really looking at that data and providing good training for teachers, and working with Ms. Walherta to put some things in place to where we're just all on the same team and working together to get that done. So bringing in a lot of training. Also, in addition to all of these surveys and analyses that we've been talking about with TASB, one thing we have not done in special education in the 11 years that I've been here is a workload audit. So that's different from a staffing audit, because staffing audits go with typical numbers. So, you know, the 1 to 22 ratio, or the 1 to 14 ratio, or the 1 to 11 ratio, how they have their algorithms. But with special education, it's different. It changes from ARD to ARD because the services change from ARD to ARD. Second of all, these kids move from campus to campus, and so what we've been guilty of in the past is we leave all the same staff there, but the kids are moving. And so you end up with a disproportionate staff to caseload ratio without meaning to. So we're really going to be looking at every single schedule of services, all of the related services that we provide. I think right now we're probably staffed appropriately district-wide, but we may need to do some tweaking. We may need an extra para down here. We might have a high-need student moving up to another campus, and we need that staff member to move with them. So we're going to really take a hard, close look at how we're using our staff and how we're using our continuum of services to make sure that we're doing what we're saying, and we're saying what we're doing, and that we're reviewing that to make sure it's benefiting the student academically. And so super excited about just making sure we have all the right people in all the right places. Okay, so the other branch of what I oversee is other special services. So special ed is just one special population. And these other ones, they take a little bit of time. They're easy to overlook sometimes, so I've really tried to pay attention. We sent out our first parent newsletter for our gifted and talented parents. And that's to really get them involved. We're all trying to raise our family, parent, and community involvement. And so just informing them about GT. We're looking at all of our forms and processes for GT, starting down at Falk, but going all the way through. How are we identifying them? What screeners are we using? What forms are we using? We're going to go to all electronic forms because it's going to make it easier. We're going to go from a paper-based screener to an electronic-based screener. Just to streamline the process and make it better. And then we're going to start working on the projects. You know, what does GT instruction look like? What do those projects look like? What are we offering those kids? Because I can tell you that those twice exceptional kids, you can absolutely be special ed and GT at the same time. It is possible. And some of those kids that are wreaking the most havoc just might be both. So what does that look like, and how do we identify it sooner than later and provide them with what they need to be successful? So we're really looking at processes, and you'll hear that a lot. In all of our special populations, we're spending a lot of time reviewing processes, and we do it as a group, whatever is the appropriate group. Sometimes it's the counselors, sometimes it's the educational diagnostician staff, sometimes it's the directors, sometimes it starts at the top and moves its way down. So we haven't really gotten all the way through those, but we're starting the review process. Okay, emergent bilingual, ESL, you've probably heard it called any kind of alphabet over the last 20 years, but right now we're on emergent bilingual. ESL is the program that we offer. We're not a bilingual district because we don't currently have 20 or more students at any grade level whose language is other than English. But we are emergent, we are ESL. We do provide those services through teacher and para support. We did send out a Title III newsletter, and we did offer an opportunity for parents who were coming to the kinder and pre-kinder roundup, an opportunity for 30 minutes before, if they needed that process explained to them in their native language, they could come in. I haven't checked to see if we had a turnout for that. We had a pretty big number of people open the newsletter, so we subscribe to this thing called S'more that allows us to get analytics on how many of our parents open a newsletter, how many click on a link, how many use any resources that we give in that. And this was our first attempt, so we're looking to make that better and to really monitor that parent involvement and to offer better opportunities. TEA is going to be working with us on that. They provide training opportunities that we can put in links to where parents who aren't willing or able to come into the school can still have access to ways that they can support an emergent bilingual student at home. So pretty excited about that. Eventually, for all the special programs, they'll be on a rotational basis, so that every special program will have a newsletter with links and supports once a semester, so that the burden's not so heavy and so we're not inundating parents, because some of them belong to all of those populations. We don't want to just be throwing fancy newsletters at them all. So we'll do GT 1 month, we'll do emergent bilingual 1 month, we'll do special ed 1 month, so that each one is getting information from the school once a semester. So that is our goal. And we will be holding emergent bilingual workshops for parents separate, that we're going to get those in place for the fall. Homeless, same thing. You'd be surprised at how many homeless students we report in PEEMS, and that's because the definition of homeless isn't that you don't have a home. It could be that you're doubled up, that you don't have a permanent residence. So you think about people that are living with family members or living with friends or living with their boss, or that their children are living across several homes. Those all count as homeless. And they affect us because of the way that they are counted in all of our cross populations, like anything else, especially in STAR. But we send a newsletter out for homeless also, and we're going to do some McKinney-Vento training for those parents and offer those. And we'll send those also out in the form of links so that they can get them on their phone, on their devices, to really start training them, but letting them know what opportunities are out there. And we've discussed a couple of years ago, we had a community resource fair at the Civic Center. I don't know if you remember that. We had the community bus out there and we brought in all kinds of resources that will help all of our families, but in particular it would help our homeless. How to get medical treatment, low-cost medical treatment, low-cost legal support, and those kinds of things. So we're pretty excited about that, and we'll use our homeless set aside. We're required to spend a certain part of our title money on those kinds of events, and that's what we'll be using to pay for those. And that's pretty much it. A lot in a little bit. I wasn't sure how long my voice was going to hold out, so.
Trustees, anyone have questions? Yes.
You were speaking earlier about co-teaching. What can you explain that a little bit more, what that looks like for our teachers?
Co-teaching would be having a gen ed teacher. So let's say that we were going to do a co-teach at 2nd grade. You would have a gen ed teacher who was EC through 4, EC through 6, like your normal general education teacher, but you would also have a special education teacher in the room, and they would work in tandem. So they would plan together, they would implement together, and what it really lends itself to is really strong station rotation type Tier 1 instruction, to where you're able to pull those kids into smaller groups, maybe ability group them or give them multiple different tasks that they can work on so that they're getting a little bit more attention.
Yeah, like the opposite would be when kids are pulled out to go work in small groups outside of the classroom, where the coach is basically that teacher coming into the class and working with that class in conjunction with the other teacher.
Gotcha.
So what you might be thinking of too is like a resource class. So a resource class is where the student goes in with a bunch of other special education students and sits with a special education teacher, which can be successful, but what research shows is it's more successful if you have a master of the content. A special ed teacher is special ed EC through 12. There is no way that they are the master of all the curriculum from early childhood to 12th grade. And so it's really better if you can have a general ed teacher who has that content working with a special ed teacher who knows those strategies, knows that child's IEP, knows their goals, and they can work together to accomplish that.
In this model, when are you planning to implement that?
Well, we're going to start bringing in training. I think we have some with the principals that I've talked to. We're going to do it in pockets, like in grade levels. We're going to do it in STAR-tested areas at the secondary, where we can really see the bang for our buck, and get some teachers who are a little tentative. You know, sometimes you don't want to give up your realm. I mean, it can be uncomfortable, but to really do it well, provide a lot of support, and show the success of it until we can have it as much as teachers would do it. If we could do it in every classroom all the time, it would be awesome. But we don't have that many special education teachers. So if we could do a teacher or two per grade level, if we could have all of our tested areas covered that way so that we could really see some success on those tested areas, but really down low, really seeing it in reading. That's where we really are looking for some growth, especially in special ed. This is really get them in those smaller groups with really strong teachers.
Okay. So starting off, that's going to be pretty subject specific initially, just because of staff limitations.
Yes, well, and because really down low, especially with special education students, if we only taught reading and math at Falk to those kids, then we'd be doing them a favor, because that's what they're going to struggle. It's going to take them longer. They're going to need special strategies. They're going to need a lot of spiraling, and reading and math is where they need it. They can't be successful in any other subject if they're not strong in reading and math. And so that's where we're going to really be hitting hard down low.
Okay.
When you mentioned the workload audit, when will that commence?
We've already started the list. There's a list of things we have to share, and they have to be able to talk to our special education student information system, which is a little separate from Skyward, and then they put all of that together for us. So we're in the process of giving them that information. They require a lot of PEMS information to make sure we're reporting what we're doing. That, we're checking every box on the special ed side of things to make sure that we're meeting the needs of these kids. And so we'll have it back before school starts so that we can make any adjustments. I mean, our staff will be our staff. Nobody's going to lose a job. We're probably not going to be hiring anyone, but we'll be better, more diligent about placement of staff to make sure that we're meeting the needs of kids.
And then when you talked about reviewing processes, and so there's, I guess, different groups of employees that will be participating in this. What about the parent guardian perspective? Do you have?
Oh, we'll be sending out surveys and talking about how they engage in the process, how they feel about how they engage in the process. So there's definitely going to be that climate pick, and we're actually going to embed that in the child find process so that when a parent says, hey, I think my child might have a disability, we're going to be asking them along the way, how could we do it better? What could we be doing differently? And we're working with ECI and Head Start on that process as well, because that's a transitional process. So some of these kids are identified at birth, and they're in ECI, then they get handed off to Head Start, and then they get handed off to special education. So that's a whole nother part of the process that's a little bit out of our control, but if we can make it seamless, I think we can build a good model.
And then one other question, when you talked about potentially employment opportunities and coaching or placement there, is that something that we have partners?
Yes. So we
employers
partner primarily with TWC, and then they work with Grace Employment, an employment company named Grace Employment, and they find placements for them in the community. So it's an employment agency that works with disabled students, and then the Texas Workforce Commission provides the job coaches.
Okay. Trustees, anyone else? And I had one more on my list here. The analytics, what was it called? SMORE?
SMORE.
SMORE, okay. So is that something that is used just within special programs department?
Actually, we're in the process of purchasing I don't even know what we call it. It's a Teams license.
Okay.
And we're gonna split fund that across several different budget codes. Other people will use it. Blaze is going to use it. Curriculum department's going to use it. ACE is going to use it. And so it came to our attention. Someone came to me asking about it for another department. I said it was probably better to get a group license. And so they're actually going to refund what I paid out of Title III for that license to go towards the group license. So actually tomorrow that'll be in place, and we'll have 5 accounts.
It's like a newsletter, electronic newsletter.
And it merges with Skyward, which makes it beautiful. it makes
But I
it-
like the analytics part that lets us know how effective is this.
I mean, it
You know,
tells
you do a lot of work with the tool, with the newsletter, and you're providing the resources and the links, right? But are the intended benefactors receiving it and opening it and using it? So
Right, and really to see what links they're using.
Mm-hmm.
Because like for Emergent Bilingual, TA provides me with all kinds of training, things that I can put in there as links. But if they look at some more than others, then I'm going to know when I do that next year, oh, they really like this. I'm going to offer it again, or I'm going to offer an updated version of it, or I'm staying far away from that because nobody opened it.
likewise for those students and families that are under the homeless definition and category, because things could change there relatively quickly. Okay. If there are no further comments or questions from trustees, thank you so much. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is our superintendent's report.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Barnes.
We're going to get started with the some recognition. I want to give some praise to the high school, Mr. Rams and his team, Mr. Escada and others working to get the PTEC in our Health Science Academy up and going and getting it recognized by TEA. They have a provisional designation, which allows them to work under that banner for the next 5 years and receive those supports and services that come with being a PTEC campus. And PTEC is a very specialized area because it's really designed to help those high need students to either get an associate degree, a certification, or a level 1 certification through the colleges to help them, advance in their career pathways post-secondary. So we received that on last week. So I wanted to share that with the board and the community that that hard work is paying off with our Health Science Academy. And if there are no questions about that, I'm going to move to the staffing survey that we did. I want to provide an overview of that survey. So we, based on our TEA report, we received a, I guess you want to say, they just gave us a notification and said, hey, look at your staffing numbers. You guys are heavily staffed, and you may want to consider some other options. So we partnered with TASB, and our consultant was Cheryl Hoover, a former administrator. And what she did was she did a collection of information from the district through our PEAMS programming, our master schedules, performance reporting, some of the data that they have at their HR department, and then what she called common practices in Texas. And she took this information, compiled it for us. She created an initial draft report. And in that report, the design of it is to let you look at where you are in comparison to other districts, your size. And so at the very top, just kind of pulled the first 2 districts and the information that they pulled from. But it was 12 districts that they partnered us with in this survey analysis. Again, looking at size of districts, looking at ECODIS, special education numbers, total personnel. She also looked at our historical staffing over the last few years as well. And then she provided us with a summary of findings. And so she went, what you see through A through M, in each one of these areas, she provided us a how we're staffed. Are we overstaffed according to those numbers? Are we understaffed? In some areas we saw. And then the information is really also to be determined by the district and what do we prioritize. So just to give you a for instance, the district just slipped out of my mouth, but there's a district in our area, one of our groups that they weighed us against, where they had a huge number of instructional coaches. They might have had 2 per campus. They're a small district like us, but that's what they valued. So their numbers are disproportionate to the rest of the groups. So as we get this information, is also to keep in mind, where we want to prioritize our staffing needs, and so just kind of give you that information there. But so they went from the district office to the campus offices to clerical staff, sped staff, teachers, maintenance and grounds, technology everywhere. And that's the methodology that they used. And then the results page. And so based on just the numbers for numbers, she said that, hey, if you took all of this information in and you just said, hey, tomorrow you want to do something with this information, and she found that we could have $1.4 million in staffing. I want to say overstaffing, I guess. Absorption is what she recommended, or how it's called, attrition. And what that is it's kind of what some of Chris mentioned. If your SPED students are moving from campus to campus, and instead of moving staff, you hire new staff at the new campus, over time, that builds up. If you take some additional monies that were afforded during ESSER and you hire some additional support staff and you pull them back into your budget some other way, then those numbers add up. So over time, and I think we hadn't done a staffing survey, I think my understanding within maybe the last 10 years, it's just over time the staff has grown. And so, and when our student numbers don't keep up with that, as they kind of fluctuate, and as we know right now, we're down some students. If you don't make those adjustments in staffing, the process just continues on. And so I would tell you, though, that number, it sounds big, like it's $1.4 million, but it also depends on, like I said, how you look at it. Some districts in our scenarios, they hired, more staff for whatever reason. It might have been they had more maintenance than we had. We have lesser maintenance. They might have had more. They might have had a technology teacher on each campus to show the staff how to use technology. It kind of varied by district. But what she said was, you take this information, and then now as a district, you guys can make some decisions on what you want to do with this staffing piece. Below that, based on that staffing audit, she recommended some additions. These are some areas that she said you are probably understaffed and that you could add in these additional staff members. And so, of course, if you pull that out, it comes out to a little over $1 million. And with that, I also shared the at the bottom of that page, just kind of what it looks like from that staffing model. So when you see, and I'll share the full report with the board, the final report, what you see with that is like she says, an absorption of an assistant principal. That's an individual cost. It gives you a cost increase or a savings. Addition of half a counselor. You don't really work in halves all the time in schools, but that's just how those numbers come. The addition of an LVN. So you've just kind of added those numbers in or subtracted those numbers in that way. I think it was a good process for us to really look at where we are in terms of staffing. And because that is the biggest part of our budget. When we take in our local money and our federal monies, it probably makes up 85%, between 80 and 85% of our budget. So getting that information on the next slide, our next step, we met with all the campus principals. We met with the big departments, athletics, and we went through, hey, this is what was shared from TASB for your campus or from your department. And let's kind of go through your plans and your staffing tree and see, are there some areas that we can look at making some, not rehiring people who leave, maybe moving people from one department or campus to another. And so that was the first part of that process, to kind of go through those planning pieces. We started working on some attrition plans. So I would tell you, as we've had some staff leave in some of those areas, in particular, probably the biggest area in terms of numbers was some of our clerical support staff on campuses. And so as some of those folks have retired or moved on this school year, we just hadn't hired those positions back. And so for us, it's more of a long-term attrition, right? It's not something we can just, go in and cut all these positions, but as people are leaving, is it a position that we have to have, or is it a position that we can pull from another campus and move someone over? And so that's been the process. We've been sharing that information as well. We had our faculty meetings. The principals scheduled us last week and this week, and our district leadership team met with them, and I covered this same information with the staff, letting them see where our numbers are in enrollment, and that we have to make some long-term plans as it relates to staffing. We introduced this spring what we called them, she calls it a staffing matrix, I called it a grid sheet for campuses to look at their numbers, and as we're going through the early spring planning to say, hey, I'm overstaffed, right? And then we make those decisions. And that was I think it was a fairly new process, but the principal's been working with it. Nobody's been, against it. And so it's going to help us in the long run as well. And I know HR does the allocation sheets that campuses get in the spring semester. And so what I want to do is start bringing those back in the fall semester at the beginning of the school year. So we look at it again, and then we look at it again in the spring semester. So it'll be twice a year. We'll have a focus on staffing. So I just think over time we have grown some staff members, and as our population of students has fluctuated, we're at a point now where we need to really make some decisions staffing wise. And our current position is to work through the attrition process. So every time someone leaves the district, we have a conversation about is that a position where we need to hire someone back, or is that a position that's over to another campus and we can move someone over into that position. We started doing some of that this spring with that to try to get that number a little lower, because we all know that it's a big part of the budget. And so that's just the kind of the summary. If there's any questions, I can answer those for you guys.
Trustees, questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said you were going to share
Just a detailed report. Yes, ma'am.
the detail.
It's about
Does
60
the data
pages.
go deeper than size and number? So does it show, for example, this smaller district that was comparable to us in size spent more money on teachers or admin or whatever, and it directly correlated to a growth in academic success, or how they're ranking, or if they're spending a lot of money on maintenance, are they state champions and they're getting a lot of booster dollars and things? There's so many factors there for why that could matter. So I was just curious if it
Just a numbers report.
just the
And
size of
a
the
good example
dollar.
of that would be, so she said, well, there's probably some consolidation you could do in athletic periods. And so we met with Coach, and Coach kind of laid it out for us. And like, let's say if you have 6 people in the athletic period, and she said, well, you could have 4. But then when you look at the sports that are going on during that period, well, if you got 2 coaches over here with these kids and 2 over here with these kids and 2 with the kids who are not participating in this particular sport, then yeah, you do need 6 people in that period.
Mm-hmm.
And they may have to pull some people from the high school or whatever it might have been. So you kind of take some of that into consideration, because when she looks at it, it's just numbers.
Right.
It's just you have this many kids in this period. But it's also where we have in some class periods, we have very low numbers. And so we talked about that with the principals, like we have to have a cutoff of, especially our secondary campuses. If you have too low a number of students in the class period, that class can't make it. Like, you can't have 5 kids in the classroom, right? Like, we can't do that moving forward. And we're not, and so we've already talked about what do we do about moving some kids into another subject area with that. So just being mindful of it as we work through it.
Okay. I had to ask.
Oh, no problem. No. I don't think there's any correlation. The correlation of scores is, because I would tell you my first year as principal, I thought I had to have really small class sizes, and I don't know if my performance is any better when I had really big class sizes. Right? It's just helping give teachers the support they need to get the job done. I think we have to really worry about it is when we start looking at SPED staffing, because they have to have certain, ratios and those kind of things. But I think SPED staffing, we were just, in terms of numbers, we were okay. And at certain campuses, we were okay. But there's others where we had some overages. And so we've been just kind of working through that as it comes along in the process.
Okay.
Before we move on, the staffing matrix or that grid, what is that tool?
So just
If you could elaborate on
it's
that.
kind of like an Excel document. And so what it'll do for you is you can plug in, let's say I have 100, freshmen, English students. And when you put that 100 in and you put the number of teachers you have, it'll break out how many kids per section. And so as you start adding in all your sections of teachers and your students, it'll let you see if I want 22 kids per teacher, how many sections is that?
Okay.
I want 24. We know how many sections is that. Because in some class periods you might have where it's a very high need, you might want a lower ratio per teacher. And in some where kids can stand a little higher amount, more your advanced classes, you can kind of adjust it. But what it does is it lets you to start manipulating those numbers early in the planning process so that you can we can make sure we're staff adequate.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions, trustees, on this item?
Questions. When's
Mr.
the
Cobley?
final report going to be ready?
I have it.
You have it?
Yeah, I followed up with the our consultant, and she sent it.
And you'll be emailing that to us? Or?
Yes, sir. I'll share that on the.
And then the other question I had on the recommended savings, did that include just salary only or salary and benefits?
It was just the numbers, and so I think she just had the. I think it was just the salaries, if I'm not mistaken.
So it's like the number's a little bit bigger than that once you include all the benefits.
Yeah,
that
we
we
include
pay.
all the benefits. Yeah.
That's all I had.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If Dr. Barnes, if you will continue,
Do you want-
next item, construction update.
All right, and so just want to get a board update on our tilt wall projects. We met with our architect who's helping us with the project, Mr. Todd from LWA, and we went out to, actually back on site again, just to, with the general contractor, and looked at the color schemes and kind of talked about the planning dates of the starting period, because they wanted to kind of get an earlier start, but we wanted to kind of wait till school was out so it wouldn't be so disruptive to the process on that. So that is scheduled and ready for when we are going to move forward. Same with our technology and fiber update. Mr. Brew, I've been teasing him about all the water lines they've been busting in the city as they've been burying that cable. But that project is coming along pretty good, I think, and so we're good there as well. So both projects are, on schedule to be complete as we initially planned for. The balanced scorecard update, we met with our district leadership team on May the 7th. Actually, here in this room, we had a Zoom call, which is kind of funny. You get Zoom calls now. Everybody's so Zoomed after COVID, you kind of don't want to do one, but we had to do one. But Dr. Gibson kind of got us started in the actual construction of the information that goes into it. We're going to meet with him again on next week, the 16th, and finish building that out. And then we'll have it for the boards when we do our meeting, when we come together, our district leadership team and the board on the 16th to look at what we have. And then that's the next step in that process. So the actual information is starting to go into the balanced scorecard. Surveys, we just closed on Friday, our student surveys. I started pulling that information today to share with our principals at the secondary campuses to give them the information, get the first look, so we can have some conversation with that. I'll also share that information with the board as well. I'll have a link created where you can look in and see those results from the students and their thoughts. Our parent survey went out this evening, so we sent that out through School Messenger, and that'll go on for, I think, till the 24th, if I'm right, Blaze? The 24th, and it's just the parents who have students in our district. And then at the 1st of June, we want to release out a community survey, and that'll go out through social media where people can just go online and access it and give us some information about how we're doing. And that's the purpose of all those surveys, as we did with the staff, and we met with the faculty over the last week, kind of discuss with them this is what you said, your priorities. This is how we're trying to meet those priorities. And with the student information, of course, they'll be out of school here shortly, but we'll get a chance to work with principals on what that information is, kind of what it's telling us. And the same with our parents and our community surveys. So it'll be our summer work to get that information together. And I think Miss Heather will be next with the, if there's no question, any questions about the surveys, I'm sorry.
Trustees? Okay.
And I'll have Miss Herta, she's going to kind of share a little information on our learning acceleration plans.
Oh, I had the wrong one.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you guys this evening? Sounds like we're dry in here at least compared to outside. All right. So as far as our approved providers, we do have to select an approved provider for each of those grants. 50% of that grant goes to those approved providers. So after meeting with TEA, I did several interviews with the Education Service Center in Corpus, the Education Service Center in San Antonio, Region 20, the Education Service Center, Region 3, and then also several contractors, the New Teacher Academy, Engage to Learn, Ed Direction, to name a few. So I believe there was about 6 different entities that I interviewed for those positions. And so the one for the math framework planning, not implementation, the math framework planning, we had selected the New Teacher Project. TNTP is what you'll hear more of than the New Teacher Project. And then for the implementation, we went with Corpus Christi with Education Service Center 2, with the specific specialists that they have there for Amplify.
All right.
Trustees, any comments or questions on the Learning Acceleration Support Opportunities LASSO grant? And these 2 approved providers are effective when?
They will be effective once we sign. So once we sign the contract with them. So not until after we visit with y'all, obviously, to let you know where we're wanting to move forward, and then we'll have official meetings with them beginning in the summer.
The summertime, okay. If there's nothing further, thank you for presenting this item.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Next, we'll have our enrollment report update by Dr. Barnes.
Yes. So we have our most current enrollment report from April the 5th to May the 9th. With 1671 is our district total. Our attendance is averaging 92.99 as a district. I will say this, and I tease the principals about it. It is amazing how doing STAR testing our attendance goes up. I think the last 2 weeks we've been averaging about 95%. AC Blunt has been leading the way on attendance. Had been Charlie Marshall before that, so I don't know what it is about testing, and but parents make that effort to make sure the kids are here. So that's been a benefit to us to kind of end the year getting toward our goals. We budgeted on 1,700 kids at 93%. So we can kind of keep this 95 for the last 2 weeks at those campuses. It would definitely be a help to us. You're looking at the numbers. That has also been an area I've shared with our district staff. We at the district office, we talk about it all the time, trying to identify solutions and plans for it. But I also shared that with the campuses this over the last week, that we have to be very cognizant of our attendance. I'm not sorry, attendance of course, sure, but our enrollment. And the principals, we've identified, processes whenever kids are leaving and parents are withdrawing kids. Now, sometimes a lot of it's been here lately, some job placement, people losing jobs and having to move, or the job transfers. But some of those other kids who are maybe going to surrounding school districts, we're really gearing up to try to make a big push to get those back. So we've been talking to staff about that, how that's a whole group effort to get our enrollment where we want it to be, which is going to be plus 1,700 for sure.
Dr. Barnes, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
When we're tracking that and our kids transfer out, I know legitimately so, some are going to leave the state or work job communities. Are we tracking the ones that are going to the surrounding communities like Rockport, Ingleside, Taft? Because in those situations, it wouldn't be job related.
No.
Are we tracking that?
So we've been talking about putting a better system in place to kind of really have some numbers written down and the whys. A lot of times, parents are just, hey, we're moving for whatever reason, but we want to start getting those numbers down and having those conversations. That's what I'm really looking forward to, is just having some one-on-ones with them. Like, why are you leaving? What are we doing? Why are we not the school district of choice? That's kind of been my word in here recently. Like, why do you think another school district is a better situation for your child? And let us know. I'm not saying you can't take them and leave, but I want to know so we can make adjustments to what we're doing to let you know that we want to better serve your kid. And so that's been our conversation as we lead into the summer, to just kind of have that system in place, because we need to know. to the why. You kind of hear bits and pieces, but we want some consistency on why. And sometimes I look at neighboring school districts, and some of them have it posted. How many of our kids, or because everybody accepts transfers. And so, what I've tried to educate our staff as a district on is that we're in an environment where it's kind of like those big districts like San Antonio and Dallas and Houston, and they have to compete with charter schools, right? Because parents have choice. Like, if I don't want my kid to go here, I can go to one of these public charter schools. And so my mind is the same way. If we have open enrollment and they can go to a Rockport, or they can go to Gregory Portland or Ingleside if they want to, or Port Aransas, then I want to know why you want to go there, right? What is it that we don't offer? Because we offer a lot for our kids, right? We, at our meeting the other day, we watched a video from Raise Your Hand, Texas, and they're talking about quality schools. Everything they showed in that video, our kids have. Without that, I think it was a violin, so we didn't have that orchestra piece. But the other programs, the drones, the robotics, those other things, we have that in place. And so whatever that is that parents are feeling like this, like for this year, we're probably down 80 kids. Like those 80 kids, if only half of those 40 are somewhere neighboring, we want them back. And so, but we have to make a push for it. And so we're going to be real aggressive in our marketing for those parents to let them know that this is the best school district of choice for them. And that kind of goes into why we released the app and the new web page, to try to get that information out to them, to keep that continuous positive feedback going, and let them know that the Aransas Pass is the best district for them. But we are trying to collect some of that information on why those kids are moving on.
Well, I think it's easy when you're in the middle of conducting your daily business for somebody to fill out a transfer form and leave.
Yeah.
And go. They're gone. They don't want to be in Aransas. They're not here. We don't need them.
Mm-hmm.
The hard thing is to ask the hard questions. Why are you leaving? I mean, it could be something. Rockport offers a fine arts program that we don't. But that's data that we can have as a board to say, okay, if we're losing that many students, then that's something we need to be looking to. Or it's athletics. We're not happy with the athletic program, or whatever it may be. But I mean, if we're not asking those tough questions and get that information, then we can't move forward and make the changes that we need to.
Yes, sir. And that's us, man. I told them it's all about marketing right now. We have to compete for kids if we want to keep our enrollment growing, or we want to get it back growing again.
Trustees, any other questions, comments? Next is our informational item, the calendar of upcoming events.
Alrighty, so as you can tell, in the month of May, there is a lot going on. If you have any free time in the evenings or during the day, there's tons of great events that are going on that that we're able to share those opportunities with our kids. So if anybody has any questions about any of those, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
If not, we'll move on. Discussion of scheduling preliminary budget workshops, and as we're wrapping up the current year, we'll soon be in discussions for the upcoming budget. Dr. Barnes.
Yes, we'd like to get an early start just on working through for next year's budget, and we were really hoping that if we could look at a date between June the 10th and the 14th, if the board would be available, we can take some of the preliminary numbers that we have and to kind of start sharing out, what we can do for our budget for the 24-25 school year. We're going to meet at the district level on tomorrow, just kind of start putting some preliminary things together. But we'd really like to have an opportunity to work with you guys on some budget workshop. The first one with the preliminary numbers in that week, if possible, would be a great week, and then do it again July the 29th, which would give us some, we'd have all our numbers, our exact numbers should come out on the 25th if things go as planned, and then the 29th will give us 10 days before we have to post everything for public notification.
Looking at this tentatively, trustees, is there, these date ranges, is there anything of concern? So that staff can plan accordingly?
10th through the 14th, I am going to the summer leadership, so I'll be unavailable the 12th through the 14th.
You said the 12th through the 14th?
Mm-hmm.
So then maybe the 10th or 11th?
Yeah.
And then we'll also double check with Mr. Flores.
The 10th is a regular meeting, why not start at 6 o'clock or 6:30?
To include a preliminary budget workshop?
I mean, you gotta be here anyway.
I can't start that early. I can't get here that early.
We don't,
If y'all do it in an afternoon later during that time, I can just remote and zoom in. I'm comfortable with that. If it has to be the 12th or the 13th, because I think every day it's. Let me check the agenda. I think every day is done around 5. Yeah.
Okay.
well, if it's a workshop, we don't have to have a quorum, so.
I'd still like to participate.
Well, since we are talking budget, it'd be advantageous for all of us to participate in the workshops, to go through what staff is presenting, those numbers, issues, concerns, ask questions, raise any items that if a trustee would like to see in the budget, anything of that nature. So again, also we'll need to check with Mr. Flores. And then but the hybrid type of workshop might help as well. If someone physically can't be here, they can remote in. And any other thoughts on preliminary budget workshops? Okay, we will now move into our financial reports. Ms. Chapa.
Yes. The first report, the accounts payable report as of April 30th. Total cash on hand is $5,774,000. Total expenses for the month of April is $635,049. That's on the average. Next report, the budget status report for local. We've received $13,187,000 in funding, and we have expensed $12,247,000 in funding and expenses. For food service, $904,000 has come in, and we've expended $950,000. And that is because we have an excess fund balance, so we're trying to spend down the excess fund balance as a plan that we wrote to Department of Agriculture. For debt service, we've received $1,645,000, and we've paid $768,250. Next bond payments are not until August. Next report, tax collection report. I have two to present. We didn't have the March data at the March board meeting. So for March, total collections for the current month, $218,892, and delinquent $30,138.42. For the month of April, total current tax collections was $155,837, and delinquent $29,179. For FEMA, I have no update. We're still working on getting information back to FEMA on the baseball, softball field. And they're still reviewing the data. And we're still working with a consultant to bring in a contract for you all to be able to see if we could start working with a consultant to close out the FEMA for those projects.
Would that be this summer possibly?
Yes.
Okay.
ESSER report, almost finished with it. We spend for the month of April, $27,442. Remaining ESSER funds is $4,477. That's all I have for reports. If there's any questions.
Trustees, questions or comments on any of the reports as presented this evening? If not, thank you, Ms. Chapa. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. Dr. Barnes.
I'd ask that the board consider and approve the minutes for the April 8th, 2024 regular board meeting and the April 15th, 2024 special board meeting.
Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stansbury. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rector. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries. Next item, consider and approve, oh, excuse me. It's there again. Okay. Next item are board updates. Just quickly to, we did have some trustees that were able to participate in the TASA-TASB study group that was hosted by Gregory Portland ISD, but it was for all of Region 2. And this was a good opportunity for us to look at and hear from our neighboring districts. Dr. Barnes was also able to attend as well. And we had the opportunity not to just sit as a team, but it gave us an opportunity to network and collaborate and discuss issues, what we saw as prevailing or prominent issues for public education. And so that was the first that I think a few of us attended. I believe Mr. Stansbury, Mr. Molinax, or Rector have attended in the past. But so anyway, this is something that is going to be rotated among different ISDs. So if asked, then hopefully we will be prepared to do so as well, to reciprocate in hosting these study groups. The other opportunity that we had was to attend the Coastal Bend Public Education Advocacy Network for Region 2. And it was a regional summit in which dealing with not just issues for public education, but strategically on how we can advocate and be part of the process when it comes to legislatures. And, you know, we have the next session that will be coming up. And so if there are issues beyond LAC, which Mr. Molinax is representing us as a delegate, but there are Coastal Bend issues. There are things that are unique to our area that other ISDs across the state potentially, maybe it's not as high of a priority, like insurance, right? Windstorm issues. So it was a great session. Again, there were folks from all over the Coastal Bend. Just to give you an idea, we also had a presentation on property tax reform as related to school finance by the Nueces County Tax Assessor Collector, Mr. Kevin Kieschnick. There's a legislative update from Raise Your Hand of Texas. We also heard from some of our representatives, and then there was a legislative panel where we had Senator Lamantia, Representative Hunter, outgoing Representative Herrero, and it was a dialogue, not just them talking at us, but really wanting they're really wanting to hear from us. They really want to increase the engagement by ISDs. And what is also remarkable is some of the things that have been successful in the legislature were sparked right here in the Coastal Bend. and so they would like to see more of that. So if you have they're going to roll out more information and with this new advocacy network, and so if you have the opportunity to participate or just be mindful of it, right? We need to know what resources we have available. So we're not a large district and we don't have a lot of marketing and outreach monies, but we certainly can collaborate with those who do. We certainly can participate in venues that they have the means to be able to host and pay for, that we don't have to travel to. So for the Coastal Bend ISDs, CCISD is taking a big lead in launching a lot of the communications and marketing. So you may receive, it may come to Ms. Miller to give to us, or it may come directly to your district email. So just wanted to update you on that, on some other resources that will be available to us as trustees and as a district, particularly for our area. Any questions? All right, then we will move on. Next item of business is our action agenda to consider and approve serving line and dish equipment for the Charlie Marshall Elementary Child Nutrition Department through Buy Board Purchasing Co-op. And this will be presented by Ms. Chapa.
Yes. Cindy Mann, our Child Nutrition Coordinator, is here in the audience if you have any questions as well. For this purchase, it is to purchase a dish machine and a serving line for Charlie Marshall to comply with CH Local. Any purchase over $25,000 needs board approval, and CH Legal to comply with any purchases over $50,000 needs to be purchased through a purchasing co-op. So we have two vendors that we have done business with in the past, Gene Restaurant and Mission Supply. The two quotes that we received, the lower of the two was Gene's Restaurant Supply, so we're recommending if we could purchase this equipment through Gene Purchase Supply in the amount of $142,528.36. And this expense is due to items that are needed for the campus, as well as we have gotten prior approval through the Department of Agriculture to be able to buy down our excess fund balance. And if there's any other questions, Cindy Mann is in the audience.
On the Gene's Restaurant Supply, that one includes the removal on the serving line. I know they called that out for the Mission that it didn't. So.
Correct.
Perfect. Huge difference.
Trustees, any other questions or comments on this item? Okay. Did you have anything else to add, Ms. Mann?
Our goal next year.
Oh, I'm sorry, if you will please come to the podium.
Our goal next year is to get a second serving line for Marshall Elementary. Right now we only have one. All the other campuses have two serving lines. So each serving line serves the same food that's on both that we serve. So it'll speed up the process at Marshall. It'll help the students keep them in two separate lines. And so that's our goal. We want to get another one for next year and spend down the money that we make. We can only have an excess fund balance of 3 months operation. And so we're over that. If we don't start turning around spending and buying more equipment, then they won't let us receive our reimbursement money. So everything we do, we're just turning it back around, hopefully to get the kids to eat and, and serve more menu items as well. But our goal, as I said, is to get another one from Marshall. That campus, that kitchen serving line needs a really big upgrade. That's the last one, the other Christine High School that we just got in August. It's really nice, and we want to do that for Marshall as well.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Mann?
Just for clarity, about how old do you think the current serving line and dish machine is at Charlie Marshall? Just for the people who are listening and
The serving line, those are the same ones when that school was built, I believe, in 1990, maybe. I think it's when Marshall Elementary, maybe, Mr. Cruggs. Yeah, that's how it's been there that long.
wow.
So it does need, and we're gonna make it all flush, just like the high school, so they won't have the milk box here and the serving line here. It'll just be all one flushed item, and it'll really look good. It looks great at Falk and Blunt and high school, so we want to do the same for this campus as well, for the kids.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, trustees, if there are no further questions or comments, do we have a motion to approve the serving line and dish equipment for the Charlie Marshall Elementary Child Nutrition Program? And when you make your motion, staff is recommending Gene Restaurant Supplies. So when you make the motion, if you will indicate which vendor, please.
I make a motion to approve the purchase of a serving line and dish equipment for the Charlie Marshall Elementary Child Nutrition Department through Gene's Restaurant Supply.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hill, second by Mr. Galvan. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Our next item is to consider and approve the science curriculum adoption. Hi, welcome back.
All right. As you can see, we had, before my arrival, Mrs. Naomi Stevens was the chairperson who met several times with this committee. And with that, they used the science teacher evaluation rubric that TEA has provided to everyone. And upon their meeting, they are recommending that we go with the K-12 McGraw-Hill. If we go K-12, we do get a 10% discount instead of just going K-8. And so for any subject that McGraw-Hill does not cover, we have the ICEV curriculum that we're currently using.
Trustees, any questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion to approve the science curriculum adoption?
Make a motion to approve the recommended instructional material adoption K-12 McCall-Hill for K-12 science curriculum.
Motion by Mr. Mullenix. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hill. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next, topics for future meetings. Trustees, anyone at this time have a topic for future meeting? If not, we will move on to convene an executive session as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.001, considering any and all purposes permitted by the Act. Section 551.074, personnel, contract recommendation teacher, new hire instructional coach grant-funded position, new hire Falk Elementary principal, resignations, new hire information, staffing update, superintendent and team of 8 performance check-in feedback on transition in first 6 months. Section 551.0821, personally identifiable information about public school students. The time now is 9:18 p.m. Our open session is closed, and we will convene an executive session. The time now is 10:29 p.m. We have closed our executive session, reconvening an open session, and act on any items requiring action from the closed session. Next item of business is consider and approve the teacher contract recommendation. Do we have a motion from trustees on this item?
So moved.
Who is that, Mr. Rector? Yeah. Motion by Mr. Rector. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mullinax. Any further discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next item, consider and approve the grant-funded instructional coach new hire. Do we have a motion to approve the grant-funded instructional coach?
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Mullenix. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Hill. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Next item, consider and approve the candidate for the Falk Elementary principal position. Do we have a motion to approve the candidate for the Falk Elementary principal position?
So move.
Motion by Mrs. Hill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rector. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. Next item, consider and approve resignations. Do we have a motion to approve the resignations as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Mullenix. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Hill. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion's carried. If there's nothing further for this meeting, the time now is 10:31 p.m. We are now adjourned.